Hey, hey, be nice to ease in, man, with that music, man. I love it. But anyway, can everybody hear me? I know I'm off mute, so I hope everybody can hear me pretty good. Anyway, uh, let me first say welcome to the Black Man Unfiltered Network. Um, this we're gonna level set this expectation of this conversation because I know it could be triggering, and I want to try to make sure that we have I guess, a well-rounded discussion about this. But let me first say that I agree that in general, since women control access to their private parts, the honey pot, they could be held really liable in a sexless marriage. But there's layers to it. We can't stop there and just say, listen, follow the Bible and then everything will be okay. Well, we can say that about everything in life, So in the absence of complete compliance, are there other factors that lead to a sexist marriage other than a woman trying to use her box as a weapon and a reward? So this is what I want to talk about when people start to filter in. Maybe you'll miss the point. You got to go back to the beginning and say, listen, we're level setting this thing to say we're going to have a full throated conversation as opposed to just pointing fingers at somebody. Because the truth of the matter is, even though it doesn't raise to the level of the amount of women who might be withholding sex, men do have a part to play. And even though their responsibility or their portion in this might be small, it's not negligible, and is statistically significant. And as I researched different people talking about this, they were really hesitant in putting any blame on any spouse. So the practitioners, which I'm not, of talking about these kind of things, psychologists and counselors and all that kind of stuff, they're really hesitant to say, well, it's the woman's fault, it's the man's fault. Now, part of that is DEI or all kinds of bullshit, identity politics. They don't want to get demonetized or whatever it is. Because we do know in general, when these things come up, it's a woman who's not happy and this and that and all this other kind of stuff. But men do have a part to play in this. And so I wanted to make sure that when we talk about this, we talk about it without pointing fingers. And even though it's not equal across the board, you can't have, like I said, a full throated conversation only being one sided. You can't be one sided with this, So, uh, so as people come in, buckle in, and let's make sure we get the conversation started properly. And I see Black Man on Filters here, you know, and Mr. Bennett's in, and maybe we'll see some people. I know it's early for all you working class people, and I understand that. I understand that. Hey, man, I see. Hey, salute to Paul Bennett. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, and if you're around, man, you could come up in a little while, man, and give me your piece and tell me where I'm right, where I'm wrong, or well, not right or wrong, or what your opinions are on the whole matter. So that'll always be welcome. If you can't do that, just put it in a comment. Well, anyway, listen, I'm gonna try to stay away from being anecdotal in this kind of conversation. What goes on between me and the wife is between me and her, but it's going to be almost impossible without using it as some kind of foundation for how I navigated a long and I think pretty successful marriage, uh, and keeping our intimacy intact. One of the things that I think that people don't realize is that there's layers to intimacy, right? And one of the most important layers of intimacy that people forget about, and I think mainly men, is that there's a general intimacy that you have to have with your partner that stays at a relatively high level that has, I don't want to say has nothing to do with sex, but it's other than just physical sexual intercourse. And what I mean is, and Mr. Bennett really hit this real hard, kissing, hugging, holding hands, giving just little affirmations to each other, making sure that each one of you guys know from a validational standpoint that you both agree that you want to be together and you want to be together for a lifetime. That kind of there's passion in that, and that's I'll get back to that a little bit more a little later. So I mean, I think that's something that people need to recognize, and I think that's one of the places that I think men in particular could fall short on, because if you just fall on the obligation to have sex with each other and nothing else matters, then yeah, I think you're missing it. Because even if that's true, it's more than that, right? I mean, I would like to think that when we make love and have sex with our wives, it's not just out of obligation. It's not just out of, I'm giving it to you because I'm obligated to, but the passion just ain't there. I mean, that's no fun. At least I don't think it is, right? Every man who's rocking their wife out would like to think that she wants to be there. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Trey Ferg, what's happening, man? What's happening? Anyhow, so listen, let me get back to what the definition I looked up of a sexless marriage, and it's not really a definition. It's more like an explanation, and I found it in several different places. Of course, you use Google and stuff like that. But a sexless marriage is a marital union in which little or no sexual activity occurs between the two spouses. Okay, so then they started to use some numbers. They said it's like no clear cut definition in terms of how often a couple don't have sex, but if it's 10 times a year or less, they classify that as a sexless marriage. Now, I agree with that, but if 10 times out of the year you and your spouse find a time to even bone each other, then there may be some sparks left, other than if it's not just for obligation's sake, or you guys just got so horny that you look over at your spouse and say, you know what, you'll do tonight. And once we're done, you go to your separate bedroom, I go to mine, and we go back to our sexless ways until we get horny again to do it to do it one more time 2 months from now. I mean, that's no way to have a marriage either. But if you can find your way to have sexual intimacy even once or twice with that person, then I think there's a way back. I think there's a way back. So listen, let me kind of, I mean, I hope you guys kind of grasp what I'm saying, right? There is, I believe, the title of this is The Anatomy of a Sexless Marriage. And, can it be avoided? And is there a way back? And so after I go through this, I want to start talking about, you know, what's the reasons why people might have a a sexless marriage? What are the reasons? And I'm not going to cover all of them. Okay, I'm gonna just cover a couple of big categories, and you make it of it as you will. Okay, so what's the percentage of sexless marriages and the fact that almost nobody's getting married, right? So I'm not talking about regular relationships. I'm talking about marriages. Okay, so what's the percentage of people in sexless marriages, right? So when I looked it up, they say anywhere from 25 to 50% of the married couples are in a sexless marriage. And so I'm saying to myself, that's a pretty wide damn margin, right? So I would say so here's how I look at it. At the 25% mark, since that is, I think, a high number, I'm thinking those people don't touch each other at all. They don't have no sexual intimacy, and they have no general intimacy. Okay. And then as you go through the spectrum up to 50%, those people find their way into the same bedroom at least once, twice, 10 times a year, maybe a little bit more, but not enough to say they have a healthy sex life. So that's how I would look at that number. Then they mentioned Generation Z. And I said, Generation Z, it shows that the data says their sexual intimacy is on the decline. And based on the gender war and based on listening to people talk about each other and based on the transactional nature of dating, I think that's true. I think that there's sexual energy because people are screwing, in their respective lanes. But I don't think there's any real general intimacy. People are just popping one off. They're not kissing. They're giving each other diseases and trauma, and then they go about their own way to the next person, right? And then, of course, the gender war, right? That's another issue that there's a confusion in the roles, right? Because women want to be men, or no, they don't want to be men. They want to be masculine. I hate to even use that term. They want to have all the bennies of being a man without any of the duties being a man. But unfortunately, and this is even more worse, there are men who are abandoning ship, if you would say, of their manhood, of their masculinity, of their leadership, of their natural state. And one thing about men and women and the programming that we're under, and I think nobody realizes this, that even though we're the highest level apex beings on the planet, men and women, we are both still subject to the laws of nature. We're both still subject to the laws of nature. No matter how much we try to deny it, no matter how much we try to fight it, no matter all this bullshit that's being programmed into us, men and human women are meant to be together, just like any other mammals, mammalians on the planet. So we can argue that, and of course we have a free will and cognitive abilities and all that kind of shit, but that doesn't supersede our basic nature. It could derail it, but once you're acting outside of your basic nature, that's when the chaos begins. That's when the chaos begins. That's when we start pointing in different directions from each other. All right. So, and then, of course, the last one in this thing, and I think this is important, says that men must be active in the conversations with their spouses, especially when it comes to certain levels of sexual satisfaction and, of course, emotional connection. You know, guys, you gotta have some kind of emotional connection with your spouse. I mean, we can't avoid that shit. You don't want your woman just to be with you out of obligation, or transactional. So therein lies the rub. This is where I think men lose their wives in this part here. I think that the signs that a woman will give you that she's pulling away, if you don't have the emotional connections to your spouse, you'll miss it. You will miss it, and you will have an opportunity to nip that shit in the bud if you're just attentive, right? And so let me just kind of go through a couple of things I see, and this is the only anecdotal part that I'll talk about. When I was courting my wife, and just like you was courting your woman, if you're married, or your man, if you're married, even back in the dinosaur days, we had premarital sex. Okay. I remember now. I came up through the sexual revolution. Well, so yeah, we were boning. But for me, while we were courting, you wanted to see what kind of sexual biorhythm you would have with your woman. Frequency, how much she liked it, how much you liked it. Are you compatible for the long haul? And the rest of the shit you can learn, right? For me, my wife's sexual prowess wasn't on the top of my list. I can't speak for her, but obviously, whatever test she had for me, I passed. So let me pat myself on the back about that. But for me, her sexual prowess was not. I mean, I repeat, was not on the top of my list. I'm pleased, but it wasn't on top of my list. But we had a biorhythm that went through our courtship into our marriage, and we wanted kids. So if you want kids, you boning all the time, especially around ovulation period, right? You boning, boning, boning. So we had our first one, and we didn't have our second one till 7 years. Let me tell you, for 7 years, we were trying for all those 7 years. So there was a lot of boning going on. It was a lot. So we had a nice biorhythm going on. And so, after my second daughter was born, we still had a nice, I was 41 at the time. And so I wasn't boning like I was when I was 17, right? But all I'm just trying to say is we still had a natural rhythm. But you strip all of that away, which we didn't have to. We always had a general intimacy with each other that never wavered. We always touched. We always kissed. We always held with each other. We always had affirmations for each other. We always said, uh, our sex life was never transactional. It was always validational, meaning that it was always affirming that we wanted each other. We didn't have to trade trinkets for that shit. And I didn't have to trade it before I got married. I definitely don't have to trade. I never had to trade trinkets with her while we were married. You know what I'm saying? If you can understand that, you can understand a lot, especially if you're a dude, right? Because if you want to have a long marriage, your sex life cannot be transactional. It has to be validational. Because if you're still trading trinkets and shit for sex from your wife, that's a bad place to be in. That is a very bad place to be in. Okay, so um, so I think you guys with me there. So let's talk about the difference between sexual intimacy and general intimacy. And let me just let y'all know that after I say a few of these things, we're gonna show the first clip. But after I say these couple of things, whoever wants to come up, you can come up and we can watch the clip together. You know, uh, anybody. Anissa, you want to come up? Anybody? Did American Negro? How you doing? Everybody in the chat, you can come up. So, all right. So there's two things that I looked at. I break it into two things. There's sexual intimacy, which has to do with the physical act itself, obviously. And what can stymie sexual intimacy? Well, let's start with medical conditions. Medical conditions can stymie your sexual intimacy, right? If a man has ED, right? Or the wife, has gone through her change and menopausal change, and and she can't produce all of those viscous fluids that she needs, and your penis feels like a cactus going in and out of that. That's no good either, right? So that's that impacts your sexual intimacy. That could lead to a sexless marriage if you don't fix it. The man needs to fix it one way, or he needs to find some other techniques and shit like that. And the woman has to go to her OBGYN and figure out what she needs to do to fix that, right? Okay. Another problem in sexual intimacy is if your woman uses sex as a weapon or she uses it as a reward. To me, that's called transactional degradation in your marriage, right? It's a degradation of your marriage. You might as well just be, looking for a hooker, right? If you do this, I'll give you some box. If you do that, if you're a good boy, I'll do this. And there'll be some men who say, you know what? I'm not playing that game no more. Keep your box and shove it. So that could lead to a sexless marriage. And of course, the big kahuna, infidelity. Infidelity on both parts. Infidelity on both parts. We have to stop letting women gaslight us that we're the ones who cheat the most. That shit's a lie. It's a goddamn lie. It's probably been a lie for quite some time. And so, once you find out that your wife is cheating on you, got to paternity test all the children, right? You got to do all of these things. And then you could never look at her the way you looked at her before. Now, women might say the same thing to you, but I don't believe that that's true. That's why they forgive men more often than the other way around. But still, it could lead to breakups. It could lead to, the lack of sexual intimacy on both sides. And then, of course, a complete loss of desire for your spouse. And what could cause that? Obesity could cause that, or just plain indifference. We're just partners. That's why it's so dangerous calling a person a partner going into a marriage instead of calling a wife and you calling him your husband. Because if you're just partners and your marriage is just transactional, then what's the sense of staying together? I don't see any. So one more thing on the general intimacy. General intimacy, has to do with, simply being continuously affectionate to each other, snuggling, kissing, holding hands, affirming conversations, serving each other in a non-sexual way all the time. And, I say if this level of intimacy remains high, then I believe that's the pathway back from a sexless marriage. If you and your spouse are not having sex, but you have all of this general intimacy together, there's a pathway back because you have a foundation for that intimacy. But you're just not doing it. You're just missing a spark. And if you're cuddling and you're touching and kissing, I mean, it's hard to say, listen, you know what, we got to take this shit to the next level. Well, how do you do that? Maybe you take her out of your house and that environment that has certain pressures on that you can't see. Whatever that might be around the environment, you might want to change it. That kind of stuff. And just change it for a little while and try to rekindle that spark. And I'm not saying go on no big ass vacation. You just go to maybe a hotel room, have room service, bring your knickknacks and some wine. You could do that. So there's all kinds of things you could be able to do to get your intimacy back. But for people to say that you can't, there's no way back from a sexless marriage, that's absolutely not true. It's not. Well, anyway, CBN, I'm ready to put on the first clip, the first 3 minutes of the clip. And anybody who might want to come up can come up and we can do that. Yo, Frank, I was waiting for you to put some bullshit up there, man. This is a non-professional, this is a non-professional thing. Yeah, the first 3 minutes, please.
Getting intimacy back into your relationship is important because it's very rare to have a healthy marriage without it. Said sex is a complicated thing. It's beautiful, it's fun, but it's also kind of self-esteem. You could think of it as a simple act, but in reality, it could be the sole source of tension in your relationship. Unless both partners have a very low sex drive, a lack of passion, sex, intimacy can be a downfall for a marriage. And unfortunately, it's also quite easy to fall into a vicious cycle when it comes to sex. It's hard to want to have it when you feel emotionally detached, but it's hard to feel emotionally bonded without physical intimacy. Basically, the less happy you are, the less sex you want, and the less sex you have, the less happy you are in your relationship. But don't panic. As much as it may feel impossible to get the passion back into your relationship right now, it is possible, I promise, and I know how to help you make that happen. Now, it is important for you to know that it's not unusual for one person in a couple to have a greater desire for sex than the other. And there can be a lot of reasons for this, a major one of which is testosterone. Generally associated with men, testosterone drives sexual desire, which is why the assumption that men are more interested in sex than women is such an age. But that said, women's sexual desire can also be fluctuating testosterone. Now, that is not to say that men and women have the same needs when it comes to sex. For instance, women tend to need an emotional bond before they're interested in having sex. They need their husbands to be thoughtful and loving, share their emotions, and spend time together. What they want to do is make love. But on the other hand, if a man has been complaining or criticizing his wife for not wanting sex more often, the wife will likely feel any shred of passion is going to be lost. And if you want to have a more professional relationship, you need to give your wife what she needs. Listen to her, show interest in her, do small, thoughtful things, and spend time together. Remember, being absent from her life is a turnoff, and taking her on a date is a turn on. Unlike women, men usually don't need as much emotional bonding to desire sex, and it has to do with the fact that they have more testosterone. But this is they think about and desire sex more often and request bonding and emotional closeness before having sex. In fact, men tend to be just as the opposite. The more sexual relations the couple have, the better the husband feels about his wife and their marriage. And since men's confidence is generally linked to being a good provider, by satisfying their wives sexually, they get their emotional bonding needs met by having sex. And oftentimes, men simply can't understand why their wives don't think about it and want sex as much as they do. So, ladies, if you are even a tiny bit interested in having sex, go
Let's
ahead
stop
and
the
do it.
day.
The
Stop,
intimate bond that you want with
CBN.
your husband will follow, and you'll both be more interested in sexual
CBN, you can
intimacy in the
stop it.
future.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll come back to it again, but yeah, you can stop it there. We'll start from there. So I just want anybody who wants to come up and chime in, and could drop the link for them and whatever. We could do that. So now here's the big kahuna. This, like I said, I already talked about the pathway back. Right, there's a pathway back to just general intimacy and maintaining that, and from that, can your can you can a sexless marriage be avoided? I mean, can you avoid it? Right? Is it possible to avoid a sexless marriage? And of course, the answer is yes. Right? The answer is yes. Now, one of the things you have to acknowledge first is that do both people, spouse, husband, wife, do they acknowledge that there's a problem that needs to be fixed? Okay, because once that acknowledgement is there, without blame or attribution to either party, once there's an acknowledgement that there's something to be fixed, now you have a basis for understanding and a basis for correcting it, if you want to, right? That's how I would see it, right? And I think that's a natural way people interact. What's going on, Easy Money? How you doing, man? You can come up here. We can teach you something. Anyway, so the answer is yes. So acknowledgement provides the foundation for repair, especially if there's no infidelity involved. If there's no infidelity involved and a certain amount of, like I said, general intimacy remains, then I think you could fix a sexless marriage, especially if there's no medical conditions or anything like that. It's just a desire and will to do it. And maybe that's a conversation. Maybe that's plugging a hole in your marriage that you missed. Now, what can a man do? Right? I'm going to start with the men first. And it's not an exhaustive list. Actually, it's a short one. Before we get to the second part of the video, it's a short one. What can a man do? Well, be in tune with your spouse, right? Notice if she's slipping away. I mean, if you have a regular sexual biorhythm with your wife, right? You should know when she's starting to slip away. Why wouldn't you know that? Why wouldn't you feel that? So you got a choice to make. What do? You just sit there and watch it slip off the cliff or into the abyss? Or you say, hey, listen, we got to talk. I noticed that, you're not willing to have sex, or you're not in the mood lately. What's the deal? And don't leave till you get some kind of answer. You don't have to be brute force and all that kind of stuff, but there's an answer to that. And let her tell you. Yes, sir. Who's this?
You know exactly who it is.
Yeah. What you talking about? I don't see you, so you like God on high or some shit. Oh man, golly. Well, okay.
Listen, I think,
yes, sir.
I think that where we're going wrong with this whole situation, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that when men are not allowed to have these type of feelings. Men are not allowed to be in sexless marriages because the first thing that will be said is that he's cheating. If he don't feel like having sex, he's cheating, which most men don't sit around and neglect or sit around and keep sex from their wives. Matter of fact, some wives could get in heated arguments with their husbands. And right in the middle of a heated argument, she'll try to have sex with the man, he'll still have sex with her. Nothing stops the man from having sex. And I think that most relationships and I'm gonna say this part because I know I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. The thing that upsets me about the sexless marriages is that the majority of these women are raising hand, I'm in love with Jesus Christian women. And for you to be I'm in love, raise my hand, Jesus Christian woman, how could you in any situation not have sex with your husband? Now I'm gonna give you this and I'm gonna land my plane. Shout out to Mama and Pop Kemp. There's a lady and a man that's in my city in Dallas who does marriage classes.
Okay.
And they're very good. Her husband is a retired firefighter. She's a retired pharmacist. And now they just take their time with couples, young couples, financial stuff, day-to-day stuff. And this is one of their stories. Her husband, the day before they got married, his bachelor party, he fucked his ex. She got pregnant. She got pregnant. He didn't know she got pregnant, but after she had the baby, she brought the baby to the house. They were still newlyweds. After 9-10 months, she brought the baby to the house and left the baby at the doorstep. Got DNA test, baby is his. His wife took the baby as her own and raised it. Right? She told us the caveat of that is 10 years later, she said for 10 years, she did not want to have sex with her husband. She didn't want to touch him. She was disgusted with him. She didn't want anything to do with him sexually, physically, because it would disgust her. But she said, you know what happened? She said, when I took a vow to be a wife. And she said, even when I looked at him in disgust, I still had sex with him like nothing ever happened. 10 years. So, she felt that way.
So BMU, I mean, first of all, you didn't let me finish, but listen, because I don't think I said anything different than what you said. I didn't say that women don't have listen, she said it was just out of obligation, and maybe it was. I don't believe her. I don't think it was full of that. I mean, if she accepted the baby as one of her own, then boning her husband probably wasn't that big of a fucking deal. She was mad, yeah. But she wasn't mad for no 10 years. I mean, come on. Listen, I mean, it sounds like a good story, but I'm not even saying that was wrong. But let me tell you, and this is the thing I'm thinking. You're married, and every other married man out there, nobody's saying it's your fault. Yeah, you'll fuck a pineapple, because the hole is juicy enough. Okay, yeah, okay, I can dig it. But that's not the point. The point is, if you have a spouse that's pulling away from you for whatever reason, whether she's losing her vow or not, if you know it, then you shouldn't let it happen. I mean, if in the best of your ability, you should try to stop it. And if you can't stop it, then we go to plan B. So I'm just saying every man has a sexual intimacy, and I don't believe you if you tell me you don't have a general intimacy with your wife that carries you through the time between bonings. Every man does who's in a healthy relationship. You'll touch each other, right? You give affirmation. That shit's important. It's not just whether you banging her out at night, man. You ain't banging her out every second of the day. What happens in between time? So I'm saying people lose it there because that's where you make the connections. And if my wife, if we had a sexual rhythm and it started to sway and it started to slip, then I would say, what the fuck is going on? Just like I check her for other things. I would check on this and try to get to the bottom of it. And if it's not for any nefarious reason, then I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna find a way to fix it. And what if
But why do you have to? Why? That's my
the point is that we have to do everything in our marriage, right? We're obligated to keep our families together. You fix other things for your wife.
Okay, but my thing is this. Like I said, the expectations for me. This is what I'm saying.
Let me say this, and I'll land it. This is our disconnect. You're saying that I'm absolving her of her obligations. I am not. But just like every other obligation in the Bible, everybody doesn't follow those things. What's your road to Damascus? How do you get people back on track when they fall off track? You don't just let them dangle because they're supposed to make their way back on their own. I mean, I don't see how. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
All I'm saying is this, man. I shouldn't have to. If you don't have, and I know this is, I know this. I'm just hardcore with it.
You're hardcore.
And let me just say this: if you don't have to remind me or butter me up or do anything sexual to me for me to come in this house and pay this fucking mortgage and pay these bills, I don't want to hear nothing about your fucking feelings when I'm asking for some pussy. And a man should even have to ask for it. I'm just saying, if I go to get up every day and I go to work and I deal with these people out in the world, when I come home, the last thing I want to do is put in VPTO, vagina paid time off. I don't want to have to put in no goddamn VPTO for no. And
For
you
me,
know, but you know what? I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna land.
oh no, man, go ahead.
The biggest problem with men cheating today is that push away from their wives where their wives are not having sex with them. It's too many women. It's 10. I think it's 11. 11 women for every one man, and you at home talking about I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel my cup is not filled up. And that other girl outside the door said, "Good boy, come get this pussy." I mean, we live in a world where the access is so great that the wives need to get on their shit. These women want to fuck your husband.
Now, listen, you know what? I don't disagree with what you're saying from the standpoint that you shouldn't have to do it, right? Yeah, but we shouldn't have to do a lot of things that we do, right? I mean, we should. I mean, if you feel your wife pulling away, even if you shouldn't feel that you have to bring her back. I mean, we should want to bring them back, right? Because the key is keeping your marriage together, right? So, I mean, you can stay on one end and say, shit, man, she's drifting. I see her drifting and she's obligated to come back on her own. I mean, we could look at it that way, but then shit, man, why? If you could say, hey, listen, with one word or one discussion, say, listen, you know what? Yeah, even if you said, listen, you're obligated to give me some ass. Right, so if you're gonna start to use it as some kind of weapon, we got a bigger problem. I mean, that's just a conversation, So I mean, for one man's fixing it could be different than another man. It's not one size fit all. For you, it might just be an admonishment. Hey, yo, you know what? Shit, if you want to pay in a mortgage, come get your ass over here. Maybe that's enough. But let me tell you this. It's not like you don't give and this is figuratively speaking. I don't know your wife, but if she's putting up with you, she's got to be a gem, right? So I'm saying that you probably don't even recognize it because you're trying to be hardcore, but you give your wife her flowers. That makes it easy. She might want to bone you, but you still give her flowers. I'm talking about figurative flowers.
Right. I just now this is not about you. Look at this. Oh wait, isn't she working and paying bills also? Anissa, it doesn't matter. Women. This I don't. When they talk about tradition, women staying at home has never been a tradition. Women have been working since the inception.
That's right.
So why do women feel like they could just stay at home and do nothing? They need to just. That's what I'm saying. This is why, and I'm gonna say this because I know it's necessary for this moment. This is why white women are winning. White women don't complain. They get their asses up in the morning. They get their scrubs on. They go do surgery. They come back home tired and still have sex with their husbands, still help their children with their homework. And the white man goes out and work and come home to his white wife. This is what I'm white. R-Pain, tell me I'm lying. R-Pain, these white women.
Hold on, PMU. The white women invented the sexless marriage.
Okay. I bet you. I bet you one thing. I bet you ain't no white woman that's married to a black man withholding sex.
Oh yeah, no, I can dig that. Yeah.
Come on now. Come on now. Shit.
Oh man, you guys are killing.
But you know what, though? I'm gonna let you cook, but I want to do this one last thing. She said she drifted into another man. That's what it is. Who cares? If she go get another man, kudos to them. I have 9 more waiting for me. Who gives a fuck? I told somebody one time, I don't give a goddamn about no another man coming in trying to fuck my wife. If she get weak and fuck that nigga, I'll walk in and catch him and say, baby, you see my phone charger, and I'ma leave. I don't give a damn about that. But like Mr. Bennett said, not true. Sexless marriage across the board, not with black men and white women, not with black men and white women. You ain't seeing no black men complaining about no white women and no sex. I don't give a god. I know a whole bunch of black men married to white women, and all they talk about is how they wife got them good gawk. I don't know no black men married to no white women in no sexless marriage. I don't know it. I ain't never seen it before.
Okay, so all I'm just trying to say, if a man finds himself in a sexless marriage, there's layers to it, right? I mean, some are fixable and some aren't, right? Because there's some places, and I will get to those points where you might as well just leave your woman or your man. But what I'm saying, what can a man do in general if this was a prescription, just like any other prescription? It doesn't work the same on everybody. There's side effects that are impact people differently for everybody, and the shit that the nuggets that you can swallow those, and the ones you don't like, spit them out. You know, and that's the way it should be. All I'm just trying to say is there's a path forward, and the glue that holds it all together is if you're still connected to your wife or your husband in some way, shape, form, or fashion that's still intimate. And I think that'll solve it if people start being stubborn. Now, if a man has ED, right, you know, or he's or both they're so big they can't perform and shit, or it's just not pleasurable at all, just you could fix that. You know, and if a man can't fix it, he's got to get creative. And his spouse is going to have to like it the way it is. And if she doesn't, then she has a choice to make. Right? So there's no path forward. So, and the last one is, I think you have to reflect on the ways that got y'all together in the first place. Now, you know, what enamored you to her and her to you, you could reflect on those kind of things. Now, you'll never. Oh, wow. Well, let me finish, man. Who's that? Who is that? Who is that? Is that you?
I had to pull up on you, man.
Who's that?
What my triple OG doing up here, man?
Oh, yo, man, I hear you. All right. So let me say,
hey, you can't see him? He's on the screen.
No, I can see him. No, I didn't see him. I had something in front of the screen.
Oh, okay.
I can see him now. What's going on, Rufus? How you doing? So let me just finish this one. Yeah. I think you have to reflect. I think that reflection is one thing you have to do as well. And you got to remember that, you know, if you're well on into your marriage, 10, 20 years in, you're never going to have the passion y'all had as newlyweds or when you were courting. I mean, shit's different, right? You got a whole lot of life after that. So you got to find a new passion level. Anyway, so what's going on, man? Well, how much have you heard, Rufus?
Just a little bit. I heard you saying that a man should fix if he has sex with marriage. I guess, can a man fix it? What should he do? Kind of going into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I got the one for the woman coming up. So I was going to hit the woman's side, what she should do. And then I was going to show that clip again, and then we could chop it up. How's that? Hang on for a second. So here's what I think a woman could do, right? I said, you know, be inviting again, right? You know, take a break from walking around the house with a bonnet and bloomers on and dirty slippers. Get a wardrobe that is more enticing than that for the in-home. Something that, you know, accentuate whatever curves you have left. You know? And if there's a change in your medical condition, you know, go to an OBGYN and get that shit fixed. You know, I mean, you know, just like a guy, you got to go to a doctor, urologist, get his shit fixed. And then, a woman has to reflect on what she wanted out of this guy also. Is there a spark left there to save? And I think those kind of things are just a small snippet of what can be done to bring sex back into your marriage. I mean,
I have to kind of disagree with you though on this.
Well, okay, so let me play this clip and well, go no, forget it. We'll get to the clip. Go ahead. Tell me what you got.
Well, a lot of it's to do with the mental, right?
Say that again. With the mental?
A lot of it has to do with the mental, and I'm gonna give you why. It's more like 96% mental. So my ex, right? She was very aesthetically beautiful. Weight was not an issue. She had everything going on, but her attitude and her willingness to be complimentary, right? And her willingness to be in compliance with me as the man and all the things that we were building to or subscribing to was where she became less unattractive, right? Arguing with me, challenging me, doing the things that, you know, she created havoc in my life, right? Due to her insecurities and her things that was going on in her head. And I kept telling her again, look, the one thing, you know, you don't pay for nothing, right? I don't ask you for nothing monetarily wise. And, you know, I just need just a little bit of peace in my house when I come home. I just want to come in, relax. So I'm not, if you gain a little weight, I don't even care. If you look all attack, because the most important thing to sustain is the mental, right? Is to come home to a mental.
Right.
So this is why I have to put, no matter how she dresses, she can have the best, she can do everything to try to keep that, attraction there. But all of it is for nothing if she is not mentally in sync with her man.
So are you telling me that you turned her, you stopped having sex with her?
No, I had to get rid of her altogether, right?
Well, all right. So that's okay.
You know but prior, but what happened was so we were together like 4 years, okay?
Okay.
So in the last 6 months, I want to spend less and less time with her, right? Or when she come over, spend time. Sometimes we did have sex. A lot of times we had sex, but it was just, I would just get over it. Then I would just be so happy when she says, I'm ready to go. I would take her home.
Okay,
for real.
No, I'm chuckling, right? Because I meant this particular conversation for people who are married.
But it's the same thing applies.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's not. No, it's not.
No,
we can. Well, you can tell me. You can tell me why it's the same, and I'll tell you why it's not. Okay. I mean, it's a conversation. Man. Go ahead.
We got a conversation. So
go ahead.
I'm just saying, marriage heightens even more, right? With the mental, because once again, a man is doing all this invested in this woman with the vetting, the courting process, the time investment, the emotional investment. Obviously, if he got that ring, whatever, got on one knee, paid for the wedding. Obviously, he's serious about this woman, and it's just her. If she gain a little weight, be a factor? I mean, it has to be an extreme amount of weight.
Yeah.
Extreme amount, like where you're just like, okay, baby, now I just, it's got to be like that. Like,
my wife gave me grace, so
it's got to be like 4+. But mostly, if she goes overweight, and that man is invested in this woman, they got like 5-10 years in, he's not going to leave her if she's at any type of decency of weight. It doesn't have to be the model body, but indecent. Long as because she can make up a lot of ground with her fortitude and gratitude and her appreciation for him and make him feel appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. So but listen, if we're talking about just having a relationship that has certain holes in it, the commitment is a whole lot different than the vows of a marriage vow, right? Because I don't know if you were even vetting this woman to be your wife, right? Right. Obviously, she had too many red flags for that. So I'm talking about, a otherwise healthy relationship that morphs into a marriage where the woman and the man are both vetted, and you have certain expectations, and you both believe in the vows. This is one of the things I kind of talked about, early on. Not that particularly, but I was talking about, that's why I try to keep it up to the marriage level, because the obligation level is higher for both parties than it is in the rest.
But I would say this, Mr. Payne, I would say this to your point, right? But the numbers suggest, because of the divorce rates is so high in marriages, it's coming down to the same thing, communication, right? It's coming down to the women are leaving because they no longer want to put in the work. They no longer want to do the journey, right?
Well, we're moving into there's various reasons for that. Yeah, but communication in your sexual life, your financial life, and all aspects of your marriage is key. So, but when you just say communications, it's broad. So that's why I'm trying to keep this thing bounded by saying, what are the reasons why a woman or a man will stop having sex with their spouse? And BMU just got on. Maybe you missed him. He got on just saying, listen, he don't give a shit. Yay, she's obligated to give me some ass, period.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. And I want to address this real quick before I go back into the dark. Anissa says, you make it seem like you were the only one working. Okay, now you speak for all white women. Laugh out loud. She said, can you get them though? Anissa, I didn't even want to put this out in public. I've had more white pussy than sheets of paper in Walmart. Shit. And shit, well, listen, what? Man, you better come on. And guess what, Anissa? If I wasn't married and I was single right now, I probably have one now.
Hey, you know what? Easy Money's in the chat too. Easy Money don't get his ass up here, man. Get your ass up here, Easy Money.
Doing this, I think it's hard to get these white girls. It's not at all. They love them some chocolate motherfucking man. You go come to them, and Anissa said 2 weeks ago that those women are more soft. Yeah, you go to a white girl, she's gonna be like, yes. And next thing you know, oh, daddy. Shit. Boy, she gonna make me tell all my business.
Oh man, just funny, man. Hey, Easy Money, man, get your ass up here, brother, if you can. Hey, listen, let me go ahead and CBN, if you could play this, just hit this tape, and just the next couple of minutes. Hey, what we know, JT,
as you and your spouse identify different problem areas in your relationship and work through them, you'll both likely start to become more comfortable with being physical and intimate with one another again. Give it time and be willing to move slowly. One common technique used for couples struggling with sexual intimacy is to hold off on intercourse and learn to appreciate and enjoy the other kinds of connecting first. So if your relationship begins to improve and you find that your sex life is still lagging far behind, don't be afraid to consult a sex therapist or a physician. And alternatively, you can also go to my website and watch the free video presentation on there. In that video, I reveal even more techniques on how you can revive that spark that you and your spouse shared when you first met. Just go to www.marriageguy.com to watch that free video presentation. That's marriageguy.com. So let's first talk about the initial steps that need to be taken if you're looking to rediscover your intimacy. First off, you need to be realistic. If you're looking for the incredibly magical and passionate sex that you and your partner shared on your honeymoon, then that's probably being a bit unrealistic. It's one thing to revive the sex and intimacy in your marriage, but it's another thing to reignite the butterflies that you and your partner shared when you were only just first getting to know each other. But that said, just because the honeymoon phase is over, it doesn't mean that you can't explore an entire new stage in your relationship. One of the most important things you can do to reach this new stage is to communicate with your spouse. So let's talk about that next step, the talk. Many couples fail to talk about sex because they get embarrassed and instead say nothing and hope that things are going to magically change. It's important to be open and honest with your spouse and face the fact that beating around the bush won't help change anything. Instead, try saying something along the lines of, I'd like to spice up our sex life. We've fallen into some bad habits. Or you could say, we need to have sex, the same as we do other things that are important to us. I think we should set aside time for it. The first step to bridging the gap with your spouse is by making time for each other outside the bedroom. Your relationship should be a priority for both of you. Set aside time together at least 3 times a week. This can include a date night, cuddle time, sharing a hobby, whatever it is. If you're already doing these things, then try something new. Take a cooking class together, try a new sport, sign up for a sex workshop even. The easiest way to reconnect is to find new interests together. So trying something new requires a lot of focus, and believe it or not, that's good for your sex life. Create your own rituals to share together. A couple ritual is a habit that you and your spouse share that's unique to your relationship. It can be as simple as brushing teeth together, kissing before you leave for work, an inside joke.
Thank you. Hey, what's up, Kasim? How you doing, man? Hey,
what's
listen,
up,
man.
RP?
All right, what's going on? Listen, this guy, if he could do that shit, I could be a therapist. And he ain't saying nothing more than what I'm saying myself. You know, the only problem is guys like BMU who says, hell with it, get your ass down there and give me some ass, baby. That's it. That's his solution. You're obligated. What you got, man? I don't know how much you missed.
No, I just caught a little bit of it. It indeed is an issue, right? I think all couples have been in a relationship for a long time. You know, they experience that, and I know me and my girl, we experienced that. You know, I think it was maybe like year 5, year 6, right, when we done did everything everywhere, right, and it wasn't as hot and heavy as it used to, and we were so busy in our lives, right, where we had to set aside time and put it on a schedule, right, and by having it put on a schedule, it really helped, right. We knew that whatever we had to do during that time in our personal professions to get everything done and out the way. So that therefore, on this particular date night, we got no distractions. I got no emails coming in. She got no emails coming in for clients. Her mind is totally clear, but we can just really spend time with each other. And that really, really helped, right? Because sometimes we get so caught up in the daily rigors and daily pressures of life and in the relationship, the expectations that we have for one another. And every now and then, man, it gets a little bit overwhelming. And you got to factor in like the aging process of women and men along with that. So I think it's important for us to be as realistic as possible and say, hey, listen, this is a great chance of this thing happening. You can't expect for your relationship to be as hot and heavy as it was on day one, than it is on day 500. And you have to give each other grace and plan accordingly. And don't be scared. Don't be afraid to schedule it, man.
I hear you. All right. Hey, Mr. Bennett, how you doing, man?
What's good, gentlemen? Good to be here.
All right.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
What you got? You've been around, so I mean, what do you think so far? What's your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as has been shared, I mean, if you've been married long enough, it's not a matter of, if you'll encounter, but when. And, certainly my wife and I, again, we went through that period for the first 20 years. There was like no problems. But as soon as she started going through that phase of life, her libido just went. But we had to, and for her, I think part of it was that she didn't understand like what the deal was. Like for some reason, it was like, well, look, I just don't want it as much, what's your problem?
Sure.
So it was a tough time. And so basically we went on essentially a fast. Again, as I explained, my wife was a virgin when we got married. I was celibate for good 3 years before I got married. And me, I've always been the sort of person who is, it's either all or nothing for me. So I can go celibate tomorrow. But if I'm sexual, I'm sexual. I got to have it as much as I got to have it. But I can't be halfway in and halfway out. We having sex. If it's not, then, it's a switch. I could just shut it off. So we literally went on a sexual fast. A lot of prayer, a lot of, and basically what I created. And again, it wasn't to be hurtful, and again, it wasn't that she wasn't sexual. It's just, again, her libido went. So she might have wanted it seriously. After a couple of weeks, it's like, okay, what are we doing? And I'm just like, no, we're not in a good place until you understand what's really how I'm feeling. What you're going through now, having this desire and not being fulfilled, like she had to kind of come to a conclusion, say, okay, this is kind of what it's like. So we had to go through that. And then, about 2 months in, that's when she became more receptive because we had the talks. I talked about the needs. I talked about the logic. I quoted the Bible. I did all the stuff that was there, but just in her mind, it wasn't getting through. Until she got to a point to realize from her vantage point, what a sexless marriage was.
Right.
And once she kind of got to that level of humility, she's like, okay, now can we work out a deal? And so she began to look at the situation logically, not just emotionally or not just from her perspective. She was also able to see it from mine. And so again, we cut a deal. So again, like Kasim was saying, yeah, sometimes with us, sex is scheduled. Not ashamed to say that.
Scheduled sex with a question mark.
Scheduled and
yeah,
like Kasim was saying, it's really not that bad because it's when it's coming up, that anticipation, that hype, you get ready, you make sure you're clean, you showered, you're whatever. It's not that bad. And what I had to remind my wife, what my wife also understood, it wasn't like she didn't enjoy sex anymore. That's one thing about it that I think a lot of women have to get over. Because again, there's a sexual cycle that men and women have, and a lot of times it's reversed. Like for men are always essentially ready. Like men have desire, like always. Then you have desire. Then you have, I guess, the sex, the orgasm, and then you have like the release. With women, oftentimes it's reversed, where for them they have to have the desire before the libido. And so, like for my wife, it's like once we get started, it's fine. But for the longest, when she going through that phase, it's like getting her in. Even though we might have did it like a night before or whatever, it's like, don't you remember what we just did the other night and what you were saying and how it felt? It's like, it's just totally like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like they go into another. It's like amnesia. They just lose it.
But so Mr. Bennett, before you go ahead, Lynn, I wanted to ask you a question while you're going. Yeah, but what you said and what Kasim said, men have. Would you agree as a good statement that in your marriage or a long-term relationship or a real relationship, almost like a marriage, that men have a part to play in making women understand their obligation and knowing that they need to, not just because they need to do it out of obligation, but it's something that they want to do. Do we have let me phrase this right.
Yes, we have an obligation. I wouldn't necessarily quite phrase it the way you said it, though.
No, but I wanted to finish this. What I mean is, do we have the obligation to bring them back from the abyss? That's what I'm really trying to say. Okay.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. But to go in, like I said, with me, to go in quoting obligation didn't work.
Yeah, no, not that.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So I agree with your overall. Yes, we have a responsibility, just like any kind of leadership. I mean, it's like if you're part of a team or whatever, or we've all had jobs, especially if we had people working for us. We can't go to our bosses and say, well, the team isn't performing well, so, there's not much I can do here. It's like oftentimes you're going to be held responsible for the team that you have. And so if your spouse, if you're the quote unquote head of your household, then, I think, you're going to have to take on some responsibilities to get it as much as you can. I think that was said earlier, as much as you can to get down to the issue as far as what's going on. And yes, I certainly understood that she was going through the phases. Yes, I understood the lack of libido. We went to the doctor and everything, and the doctor was like, "Look, your wife's over 50, so what are you gonna do?" It's kind of like so they didn't. There's no Viagra or Cialis for women, at least not yet. At least not in a major sense.
Let me throw this question out. Anyone? Hey, Ruthless, are you married?
No.
Are you married, Ruthless? No. Oh, okay. I just wanted to know, make sure we're on level set. One of the things is this, and I don't want to. Did I lose my train of thought on this question? I did.
You were talking about the role. Did men have a role in?
No, I got that part. It was something else I wanted to ask you, but it'll come back to me. Maybe it wasn't that important, but and I wanted either one of you guys to answer this thing in terms of just general. Oh, being in tune. How important it, and what you guys already gave me an anecdotal reason why you're in tune. I think a lot of men miss it when they, not just the sex, when even if you're having sex, I think a lot of men in marriage miss it that they should be in tune with the moods of their wife. Not that you have to be beholden to it. You just got to know, and not just for sex. I mean, we're an order to their chaos. And when they start going wrong, if you ain't in tune with them, you could miss it. And then if they keep going down this wrong path, it's harder to bring them back the longer they go down the bad path.
Right.
And I think that goes for sex too.
Yeah.
I mean, with everything, man. I think men miss it because we stand on some square and we're not really looking around. That's when men argue about being kind of emotionally attached to their women. And in these spaces they call you all kinds of names, and you try to say, "I'm a tough guy, I'm a leader, I don't have to do all that." That's bullshit.
Yeah.
How are you gonna have a long-term relationship and not be connected to the person that you're sleeping with every night?
Right. And again, yeah. Go ahead.
No, but Arcane, that's one of the pillars of masculinity and leadership, right? If I'm in a leadership role and I have someone under my covering, if I want to have the best outcome, I gotta know the ins and out of the people that's under me. I gotta know what makes them happy. I gotta know what makes them sad. I gotta know what motivates them, and I gotta know, how I can get them to come on board. And I take all that information and I add it to my problem solving and then my insight. So the things that I'm doing, the plans that I'm making, it incorporates some of that, so I can get a better outcome and better success. I think sometimes as men that once we get locked down in the commitment, we kind of forget about that, or we don't think that that's important because I'm man, hear me roar. You just do as I say, not as I do. And then the individuals in our covering, they get frustrated because what do they say? What, you don't pay me or no attention. You don't listen to me. You don't do this and you don't do that. And then it just begins to spiral out of control. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, wow, everything is all in shambles. So I'm just a big proponent in knowing the people that is under your covering, you know, in your relationship, even in your professional life. You got to know them and take the things that they want to do and then put that in your little cake and then bake it so you get the best outcome.
I got you.
This is
Rufus. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rufus.
This is the problem that I have with you saying, Kasim. Right? Because I haven't been parsimonious in my criticism of all parties involved. Right? But my greatest criticism goes to women because number one is a man is coming in with a lot more heavy investment with his resources, his time, right? He's from day one. All the way, I'm talking about to the ring, to the ceremony, to the wedding, right? Then on top of that, right? He's in tune because he's talking about he's putting his money somewhere and his time somewhere. You better believe he's in tune because people just don't throw their money away in a vetting courting phase like that. So my greatest criticism goes to the women because they get to do this for free, right? So I think it should be more, if not more, in tune with the man as well because they're here learning all about their man and how to please their man for free. It costs them nothing.
Ruthless.
But Ruthless,
You're talking about Go ahead. You can talk about that.
So all I'm saying is, we as men, right? When we're making this investment, we are very concerned about our investment. And I'm not talking about just monetarily. I'm not just talking about monetarily. I'm talking about emotionally as well.
No, we're correct.
So
now,
we do not need to. We do not need to check men in this area because the men check all the boxes on this. Because obviously she married him, right? They got married and they're moving on and having families and they're building. So the problem we having is the women are the one writing the checks and they're bouncing at the bank, right? They're the ones. Hold up. They're the one that's. See, this is the problem where the phrase you said, Kasim, is we need to be into it. We need to do everything. We need to this and we need to do all this for them. But we got to also never forget they're adults and they have to accept a responsibility to bring their end of reciprocation into the fucking party. They got to bring, because this is about the journey, not about the fun. This is about finishing.
We got the best. Let them respond. Let them respond.
I'm gonna let it in 2 seconds. So my point is, when you come into a marriage, right?
Yeah.
You cannot be ignorant that the journey is going to be a little rough here and there. So therefore, yes, we as men, we do have obligation to be there of that fortitude. But you got to remember, there's a lot on our plate because we're busy trying to provide this lifestyle, right? So we have to do a lot of things. So we need her to stay in compliance, and we need her to be less resistant and more create value in a way that she can be more of our helpmate. So this is
right.
And it's free. It costs her nothing to do this. Okay?
Right.
So now,
I get what you're saying, Ruthless, but I believe that.
Let them respond.
Yeah.
Respond.
I believe that obviously before we put a ring on her finger, obviously I would assume that all of that has been done in the vetting process, right? We understand that she may not be completely, out of a scale of 1 to 10, she may not be 10, right? But in order for her to get our last name and to get that ring, she had to be at least, 7 out of 10, something that we could work with, right? And I am sure that her demeanor, her behavior, how she communicates was part of that vetting system, right? Also, we also had to assess the amount of willingness that she had, and she had to score a certain amount of points for her to even get to that position, right? So I'm under the mindset, like, listen, she's not going to come perfect, right? But there are some attributes that I can work with, that I can work on in order for us to build together, right? And during these things, I'm under the assumption that, okay, our communication is going to get better throughout the duration of the relationship. At the end of the day, I'm the leader, right? And it's my responsibility to make sure the individuals are under my covering is, first of all, getting the best leadership as possible. They're getting stability, they're getting confidence, right? And they're getting more security. That in itself, right, with the woman that we pick that made on that criteria is automatically gonna release more cooperation on her part, right, along with our communication, so we can get a better outcome. I'm not just saying that, this is just some regular woman just out here in the street. Like, no, this is a particular type of woman that have passed all of our vetting stages when it comes to communication and it comes to a certain deportment, how she speaks, how she communicates, that she passed that threshold where we can at least be peaceful.
So let me just say this real quick, Ruthless, before you go. Because I have a basic, the basic level of this conversation is not to point fingers at women and men. I'm saying that it's also understood that a woman has an obligation to be in tune with her man. That's a given. That's one of the givens that I kind of touched on at the beginning of this conversation, that we both have a role to play. What I'm saying is, and I already concede that in sexless marriages, a woman plays a major role since they own the tool, right? They own the box. They have, they can use it as a weapon, reward. They can have their mood swings and all. The only reason why I'm talking about the men is if you're attuned to that, because women do, no matter, even great women, if they're with a man, every so often he got to bring her back on track, because women will sway if you let them. They just do that in a different way than men do, because women are not men. They're not, man. We spend a lot of time when women try to put us in their bag because they don't understand men at all. We can't succumb to thinking they should behave like us. They don't. And so so when they don't behave like us, or when they become chaotic or off track, and we have a track for them to run on, we are obligated to put them back on track, at least to make them aware they're off track. So we're not absolving them of anything. I'm just saying, we're just talking from the perspective of men on this panel. So that's what I'm saying. So we're not giving them a pass on anything.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. What I'm saying is, the numbers suggest, right? The numbers suggest, and the numbers tell the story.
I agree with the numbers.
When the divorce rate is astronomical, and it's mostly women, right? It's telling me, it's just saying that it's not that the men aren't trying to put them in a place where they can be better.
Rufus,
right?
Hold on, Rufus.
But what I'm saying is,
before you go any further, let's stop here. No, I'll give it back. I want to get you before we move the point. Before you move the point, right? I'm not saying that, that the numbers aren't with you. The numbers are with you, right? However, I think that the numbers that's not really being counted are the amount of men that stop the bullshit in the bud. I think if more men stop women from going astray in their marriage, we wouldn't have a lot of these problems. Not because I think guys are so, especially black men, right? We're so used to acquiescing to the bullshit that our women do. We let shit pass. But go ahead and finish the thought.
And once again, I'm 100% agreeing with you. But here's the problem we're missing. We're missing one pivotal factor. We're acting as if the women do not understand the power which is beholden by the X factor, which is the government, via their family members, via their best friends, outside influences, right? So all these things can play a pivotal part in the determinant of the relationship. Once again, I do agree. This is why most men try to they try to get a cut of friends off, not that much of the family, right? We try to keep it, as tight knit as possible. But there's only with the current growth in the 2024 of the government involvement in the house, right? With America being pro-individualism, which is pumping to the woman's ego, it's problematic. And I'm saying that a lot of these women are aware of this. And at any time, if they feel that, you no longer can fulfill this happiness or this void that they're feeling, they didn't take an easy way out instead of, like you said, coming to you and get you, be the leader that you are, that she picked, that she was under, right? No, she's picking her feelings and self-love. Says I need to love myself more. I need to be more for me instead of let my husband be the pillar of my life. So this is where the disconnect's coming in. The women are just leaving like, okay,
Oh,
I don't.
okay. I gotta stop this. I gotta stop
No.
this. I gotta stop this. Ruthless. The government has not stopped one man from getting a piece of pussy. I'm sorry, man. That's
No,
not
no,
how
no,
that
that's
works.
not what I'm saying. We talking
That's
about
not
control.
how that works.
We talking about control, easy, but we talking about marriage,
No,
right?
no. I know.
So,
I know
so,
what you're
so
doing. You're doing the red pill thing. I got you. I know what you're doing. You're saying that
I'm doing
women
the
are
red pill. I'm
choosing
doing the red pill.
happiness over the marriage. No, but you're doing the red pill thing. Even if you're not, you're doing the red pill thing. Because you're
All I'm
saying that
saying,
women are choosing themselves over the
they are.
family, and
Okay, all
then
right.
there's an incentive for them doing that, and there's so much data that disproves that's a red pill talking point.
Well, all I'm
Hey,
saying, whether it's red pill or not, and I'm gonna finish my point. All I'm saying is the data. We're speaking to the data, easy money. I'm not speaking to individual women because I'm not there. But the data says because of women are leaving such a high rate, right? It's because it's not to the most extreme situation why they're leaving, or their life is in danger, right? Or
Do you
that they're
know what the
playing this
number
game.
one?
One
Do
minute,
you
let
know
me
what the
let
number one reason for divorce
it.
is?
I'm gonna send it to you, easy. All I'm saying
Okay.
is they're leaving for reasons that, in my opinion, that are solvable. Unless your life
yeah,
is in danger, unless your life is in danger, your health is in danger,
we
right?
got to, we got
Or
it.
or or or, or, or
Yep.
that your kids are in danger, something that's deranged, but everything is pretty much solvable on the table. But the women are saying, you know what? They're dissing the journey that they signed up for,
All right,
that
man.
they
We got
signed
it.
up
We
for,
got it. Hey, Rufus, we got it.
and then they're
Let him
going
respond, man.
and
Let him respond.
they're leaving on the pretense of the way they feel. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
No.
Rufus. Let him respond. Go ahead, man. Go
So
ahead.
really quick,
Hey,
the
first of
number
all, how you
one.
doing, Easy? Wait, before you go, man, how you doing,
Yeah,
man? What's going on, man?
I'm fantastic, brother. How are you?
All right, fine. What's that? Okay, go ahead, man. What you got?
And
Hey,
the
don't
esteemed panel. Well, I want to say hello to everybody, my fellow ball brothers. I'm on my way home, as y'all can see. The hair starting to go.
before you go, though, Easy. I don't want to
Yeah.
Hey,
get down
next
the
time
rabbit
come in
hole.
here and shaped up, brother.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
saying.
right.
You
Please.
got to
It's all
represent us
about.
always, man. So that
Yeah.
needs to be shining right there, man.
There's no
No,
half-ass.
it's here though. It's here. It's there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So listen, before you go, Easy, you can answer
Yeah.
Rufus, but I want to kind of elevate it back a little bit about sexless marriage and the points. You've been here for a while. You heard what we were saying. I want to know
Yeah.
what you agree and what you disagree with on that matter too. So you can answer Rufus a little bit and just come on onto the main topic.
Yeah. So really quick, I'm gonna try to hit this really quick because my kids are on their way out from their scout stuff. So to Ruthless's point, the number one reason for divorce is a misalignment of expectations. Men and women who are getting married continue to miss each other in terms of the expectations. And to your point, those are solvable issues, but at a certain point, when people become reticent to solve those issues are no longer solvable, and therefore people are divorcing. Now, to that point, when we're talking about the misalignment of expectations, it's often the man not contributing enough to the household. And we are still a number of us are still operating under this outdated mantra that men are the wallet and the penis and women do everything else. And the way things are going now, that is no longer a suitable expectation for marriage. And men gonna have to get in there and change some diapers. They're gonna have to do the bottle thing. They're gonna have to take the kids to the park. They're gonna have to do homework, go to the PTA, and a lot of men don't want to do that because it goes against what we're told men are supposed to be. And so to that point, essentially the panty butter dries up because the man appears to be disengaged and disinvolved from his family and from his children. The easiest path to getting sex is creating the trust that you're going to be there and you're going to partner with your person and do what needs to be done, and they will do what needs to be done for you in the bedroom. Now, that being said, sex is not a one way thing. And that's the other part of this where we view sex as something that happens to women that men do. And once you get out of that mindset and you make it a mutually beneficial thing, you're not going to have to throw out there, Jesus said we have to have sex. You're not going to be out here trying to get some pity. You're not going to get starfish. Once you actually make it a mutually beneficial situation in the bedroom, you're going to find that your woman is going to be throwing it at you and shaving for you on a more regular basis. And I'll land my plane there.
Well, let me ask you this though, and I agree with what you just said, except for the fact is, I want to know where the data comes from to say men don't do shit around the house. I don't know if that's really true, especially
So
these days. I mean, what I'm saying is, I know a lot of guys. I mean, of course, I mean me included. I know a lot of guys who actually do shit around the house and work. Right? I mean, but if it's because the modern woman, they like to gaslight a lot. They
mhm.
use a lot of excuses. So I'm not so sure they're not getting the help they need. Well, here's another thing. There's a lot of
So
women.
let me.
If they were blessed enough to stay at home and be stay-at-home wives, they have a certain amount of complaints too. If your woman's working 40 and 50 hours a week like you, and you don't have the common sense to help her in the household, yeah, then you're guilty, right? Then you're guilty. But and maybe
So
there's more men.
Arthur, let me help you. Let me help you with that. So to that
Okay.
point, so when I talk to men, right, and they're like, "Well, I'm involved, and I hang out with my kids, and I do," and so like when you say, "Okay, what is it that you do at home?" I take out the trash and I whoop the kids. And they'll view that as being involved when in reality it's a lot deeper than that. Do you know your child's doctor's name? Do you know your child's teacher's names? Did you
Gotcha.
see the Lance report card? And there's a
Gotcha.
number of men that are not involved at that level. Like if you actually drill down and ask them what it is that they're doing, the list is very short for a lot of men. I don't necessarily want to say most, it's probably closer to 40, 45%, where that
Enough
list
to
is
make a
very short
difference.
in terms of what they're doing.
Enough that's significant. I agree.
Right.
What do you think about that, Kasim? Is that true?
I would say this. I know that we as men, what we want to do is we want to solidify, the stability of the house when it comes to income, right? And for most men, including myself, that is like a really big driver, making sure that we are stable in our careers, so that therefore the lights can kind of stay on. And because we take on such a heavy workload, it taxes us mentally, and we consider that as like the most important thing, the financial provisioning aspect of it. And then sometimes we lose the other part of provision, which is providing insight and providing, thoughts and things like that, providing our energy and our mindset and our being. And I think sometimes we miss that when we focus so much on, keeping a roof over our head and keeping the kids, bellies full, and keeping, the lights on, and those particular things go by the wayside. I know it happened for me, right? When my kids were growing up, I got so caught up in work and trying to hang on and keep the job that I had, because I was under a lot of pressure, that again, I would get home and I'd be very tired. And sometimes I wouldn't want to play with the boys, because in my mind I had to do what I had to do in order, to keep the job and keep the
Well, was
lights
your
on.
wife
So
working? Was your wife? That's this is a mother of your kids. Was you were married at that time, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was she
No,
working?
she was not working. It was just me. It was
Okay.
just me. I had provided that particular lifestyle, for her and for the boys, and we were perfectly okay with that. But there were some times, even though I had savings and things like that, but there were some times where there was a little bit of uncertainty there, and that's when my mind, really focused on, because I have three boys, right? They eat a lot, and they mess up their clothes, or they destroy stuff. So so that was
Let me,
just the thing on my mind. But
but let me
then I
before you
had to.
go on. But before you go on, Kasim, because I want to hit this right. The distinction between a woman who stays at home, even though she should still get some kind of help, and I can understand the man being tired if he's the breadwinner, he got to work extraordinary hours. But in the modern era, right, and mostly, I mean, still, for you and me, my wife didn't have to work, but that was still 20%, 26% of marriages where a man could be the breadwinner, sole breadwinner, and the wife could stay home. But the vast majority of marriages will have women going out of the house 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, just like the man. But when you have kids, she had to go ahead and collect the kids, bring them
Mhm.
back, and do all of those other things. And the guy said, shit, my job is done. That's what easy money. That's where you come from that perspective, right?
Right.
And I would say there was too much of that. But I'm not so sure that men have been caught up to understand that there's a new calculus, especially with your women in those working those heavy jobs.
Yeah,
Well,
But
but
we're
listen,
not getting married
I
no
think
more. We're not getting married
right,
no
but
more, so we don't know.
no, but
No,
I think I think that men are pretty much we're all the same, right? Again, we want to make sure that the kids' bellies is full, there's a roof over their heads, and there's just lights on. We're just conditioned to do that, and we get so focused on that we figure like, hey, like what? I'm doing the most important thing. I'm carrying everything on my back, and the woman should understand that. But in reality, they don't. And sometimes every now and then I had to pitch in, with the boys. Just I take the boys and say, hey, honey, I wash the car, I give her the keys, hey, you like, you know what? Go to your sister's house, right?
So
She would have the car,
we're not
and she
respecting
would take
anybody.
her over her sister's house, and that would give her a little bit relief. So I think we should share the load a little bit.
go ahead.
We're
Look, what you
speculating
say?
here. We're speculating here because we act like men don't love their children. So I have to disagree strongly. Men love their children and they love to spend time with their children. Now, do we have the time that women have? No, because once again, most of us are paying the mortgage, right? And that's not an easy task. So when we come home, you're going to be a little tired. We're going to be a little stressed out sometimes. Yeah, we're not going to be able to spend
let's not go down a rabbit. Well, let's not go down a rabbit hole.
Ruthless, but part of that love,
So,
part of that love is taking on the burdens of the world to make
I'll
sure
let
we
you
keep
land.
the job.
But Kasim, I'll let you
Hold on,
land.
guys. Hold on, guys. Wait a minute. Stop.
I'll let everybody land.
Stop for a second. I don't want to go down the rabbit. Let's assume that both you and your wife are working. Let's start from there. All right.
Once
So
again,
she's putting in the same. Wait a minute. Before you go, let me set the table. Let me set the table, man.
You already
can
set
say,
the table.
I'm gonna
All
give
right,
it. No, because if your wife is working 50 hours a week and so are you, then go.
Okay, so once again, I'm gonna chip in because I have so much invested, if not more than her. So yeah, of course, once again, if we're both working the same amount of hours, or she's working more, I'm working more, whatever, for this house to win, I'm planning to win. So if I need it on my days off to be extra, to put in that extra with the kids, take them to PTA meetings, I will fucking do that without even a hesitation, and I would love to fucking do that. Because this is the time that I get to communicate with them. I need to see what's on their mind. I need to see what they're going through, their childhood growing pains. I'm trying to be a part of that. So I'm going to be ceremoniously on the man's side because I do believe men love their children, and they do what they can as much as possible is to be done. This is not the main complaint of the women, though. The main complaint is lack of commitment, right, or infidelity. Things like that. Those are things why women are leaving. The number one ain't because men are not being fathers to their children. That is not the top 100 of why women are leaving. So, because for you to say we forget, no, we never forget our bloodline, our legacy that we're sitting here building for. And every fucking person that comes under my roof counts. So
You took that shit way left, ruthless. Way. I don't know how you. I know how you got to that particular mindset because your mindset is totally different than my mindset, right? We're in two totally different opposites when it comes to where we are and things like that. So that's why I give you a little bit of grace, right? Because I know the avenue that you're coming from, and I know what you're about, which is cool. Right, but I don't think for 1 second that I did not love my family and love my boys. Part of me loving them was the driver of me getting up in the morning, right, and going to do this job despite everything that I was up against. It was mainly love, you know what I'm saying, that made me drive in order to do that. So I wouldn't say that that men don't love their children. They absolutely do.
Yeah, we weren't saying that. So let me but hold on, Rufus. I want to hit this last part of this clip. And then, yeah.
Can I make one point real quick? And because I got to run because my boys are waiting on me.
Go ahead.
So to your point, you were saying something about the difference between the woman working and the woman not working. So in my situation, this is year 17, and for the majority of our marriage, my wife has not worked, and I've been the breadwinner. And it's only been in the last 2 or 3 years that she has worked. And so I think to your point, the biggest difference is with me not being home, like she carried a bigger load. And now with her working, it does feel a lot more balanced. Like I am doing a lot more. I am a lot more involved. It also helps that I work from home. Like so,
Yeah.
there was two elements to that. To where now I'm working from home, to where I'm there to take them to school in the morning, and I go get them from the after school. And when when my oldest gets off the bus, I'm there to let them in. So like there is a bigger difference when one, like in our new world where more people are working from home, there is an opportunity to be more involved in the home stuff, because it was just, when I worked outside the house, there was stuff happening and I had no clue about it. But like you said, yeah, there is a big difference between when your woman isn't working and when she is working. So that's all I got. I'll shut up and listen.
I
Kasim, I owe
appreciate
you an apology for that scheduled sex thing, because yeah, like you weren't literally saying, okay, sex on May 24th and it's May 1st. Like you're not doing that, but it's like,
No, no,
she
no,
might
no, no.
text you. She
it.
might text you and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna wear that purple thing tonight. You ready?"
Uh,
You know
uh,
what I'm
uh,
saying? Or like she might hit you the day before and
Yes.
be like, "I'm a little tired. What about you want to do something tomorrow night? You want to pop some popcorn and I'll pop your popcorn." You know what I'm saying? So like I
Yes.
thought about it for a sec and I'm like, yo, he's not being literal. So my bad on that,
No.
man. My bad.
No. All
all right, man.
right, man.
Thanks for
Much
coming up,
appreciated.
man. Hey,
All right,
listen,
appreciate y'all.
CBN, if you back there, I want to play that last bit of the clip, and then I want to get into 7 signs where you should consider divorcing your wife if it's a sexless marriage. So, CBN, if you're back there, hit that last bit of the clip, and then we can get to the last part of this. If he's back there. He's probably taking a break. Anyway, so listen, we could go ahead. So this what I was looking at is there's some solutions to a sexless marriage, but there's some signs that there are no paths back from, right? I think. And you might want to keep your marriage. And for men, and this is a point that I'm going to make at the
Or
end.
game
I'm going to
changer
make it
questions.
now, so I don't forget.
Whatever
Oh yeah, play the leg.
you
Okay, there
decide
you go.
on, make it something that you both enjoy, and then keep the ritual going for inside joke or competition to answer game show questions. Whatever you decide on, make it something that you both enjoy, and then keep the ritual going for years to come. Take a second to think back to the beginning of your relationship when you were first falling for your spouse. Remember the way that they would make you laugh or tease you? Reviving that type of playful flirting is one of the easiest ways to reactivate your sex life. While dating, couples are great at flirting with one another. They share sexy text messages, speak in innuendos, smile and toss their hair, dress their best, and in general, they try to be attractive to their partner. Flirting is a key component to getting that sexual spark back into your marriage. As humans, we respond to physical connection. So a good place to start when it comes to reviving intimacy is by significantly increasing touching. By doing this, you'll definitely increase your intimacy and your intimate connection with your spouse. Don't know where to start? Begin by just touching your spouse's arm fleetingly when you pass in the hall, or holding hands when you take a stroll. Kiss each other good night, good morning, and when you see each other after work. Sit close while watching TV, and always have at least one body part touching when you go to bed. When you do get between the sheets, keep things spontaneous and fun. Allow each other plenty of sensual time to get warmed up. Unlike when you were in your 20s when sex was straightforward, desire, arousal, orgasm, when you're over 40, foreplay becomes much more important to build arousal and desire. Don't be shy to ask your partner what they like or want. Even if you've been sleeping with your spouse for a decade, as you age, your mindset changes. So think of it this way. Early marital sex is essentially sex with a stranger. It's about letting your partner know you and getting to know them intimately. Marital sex, though, on the other hand, can be even more gratifying if you can develop an intimate sexual style with your marriage partner, something that's completely yours and unique to you as a couple. No matter where you are in your quest to revive the sex in your marriage, understand that intimacy in long-term relationships, and especially in marriages, takes work from both parties. As long as you're both committed to doing that work, you'll be just fine. And if you have any questions about reviving your sex life, or you'd like more advice on bringing intimacy back to your marriage, you can learn a little more about my one-on-one marriage coaching at marriageguy.com. It's
You can stop with this. Yeah, we're good.
And I also
Please
talk about this topic a bit more in the free video.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, man. So, gentlemen, real quick, it's funny. Listen, I could do this guy's job, man, because all that shit is common sense to me. I told my wife all the time. I said she got permanent handprints on her butt. My hands on both cheeks. My hand. I said, listen, you know what? If I grab your ass out in public, it's only a reflex action. It's not because I'm trying to embarrass you. It's always on there. She has one of those natural round ones, man. Anyway, so even with what that guy said, I agree with what he said. It's in lockstep with how I think a little bit, and he's kind of unemotional about it. So I like the way he was saying, hey, there's some things you got to do, and this whole thing about hopelessness is not true. But there's 7 signs I'm gonna go through real quick, and we can talk about it. But if your spouse refuses to work on the issue, that's like that means there's no path forward, right? If if you have major relationship issues or lack of love, lack of intimacy, lack of that general intimacy we're talking about, then that's a big problem, right? If you and your spouse are incompatible sexual now, you have incompatible sexual interests. I don't know how that happens if you didn't know that in the beginning, but it could. Or your sexless marriage is due to infidelity. That's a big one. It should have probably been number 1. Mm-hmm. And your communication is gone. Your spouse is a sex addict. Sometimes the guy, if your wife is a sex addict, you can't keep up. That's one problem. If you're a sex addict and she can't keep up, that's another problem. But they're both problems. And of course, like I said, if the general intimacy is gone, then your marriage is kind of over. So they're saying these are kind of conditions. Now, for men, if it's time to divorce your wife, for most men, if you married a chick at Burger King, you have a financial, you're financially, you got to make a financial decision because you're going to get hit hard, right? So that's why I think men, especially nowadays with the new calculus between men and women in terms of how we get together, I think men should be somewhat hypergamous. They stop marrying chicks that are broke. I mean, if they don't have no money, they ain't matching you, financially in somewhat level, and they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because of school loans and shit like that. I don't see how you can marry a woman like that. So I think men should marry women who are, like they say, equally yoked. Right? There's more women out there now in the workforce. They're making money. And if you're a man on your square and you're making money, I would stop looking at women that you have to build.
You got to visit
Arpain. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Arpain.
Yeah.
Right. I have 3 boys, right? My oldest son is 28. He's been married 2 years. I got a middle son is 26. My younger son is 24.
Okay.
And I encourage them, like when they were in school and college, they're saying, hey, this is probably like the best opportunity that you're going to get in order for you to get, a suitable partner, right? So that you guys can grow together. And if they're both in school, they're both in college, obviously when they graduate, there's going to be a little bit of college debt there, right? So if that particular woman has the right virtues, the right mindset, the willingness, right, the cooperation and all of those things, and they're in college together, would you still dissuade him from getting married because she's going to incur student loan debt?
Yeah, it depends on what she went to school for. If it's underwater basket weaving and she got $100,000 of debt, you goddamn right I told him not to marry her.
Let's just say they're both in medical school, right?
If they're in something that you can actually finance the debt they've created, of course, then I wouldn't have no issue with that.
But we're missing one thing here, though.
What's that?
You never know. You can't predict who you're going to fall in love with or who's going to get attached to like that. It's like I'm dating somebody, right? And yeah, I'm looking like you. I'm like you, right? I'm looking for all the right things, aesthetic outwardly, finance, okay. But if I meet a woman, let's just say, okay, I meet a woman who's maybe economically challenged, but she's on my program. She's what I want mentality-wise. I'm just going to throw her away for that. And I'm dealing with all these women who are projecting all the traumas with all these different relationships on me.
Okay, but we're talking.
I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I'm definitely, if she has student debt, whatever, we definitely gonna work through this.
All right. So listen, I'm not talking in absolutes. I'm saying in the majority, if women are down, we're talking about, if you're talking about educated women, but it's not necessarily two educated women, right? Or two educated women. A lot of guys marry, like you said, Rufus, a chick who they're enamored with, whether she went to school or not. So I'm trying to say two college graduates are equally yoked, but it does matter what both of them went to school for, right? Because I don't know if your sons had any kind of college debt, because you got all that money there, Kasim. Everybody ain't like that, right? So, but the bottom
They
line,
wasn't struggling.
but the bottom line I'm saying is that if your woman is a college graduate, it's got to be a path forward, because a lot of women, we already know how that is at. They're all asking for Biden to relieve their debt, no matter what they're in. So it's not a good way to start a family or a marriage. Now, okay, wait a minute. Is that, maybe I'll walk it back a little bit, but financial discussion has to be a part of the vetting process.
Yes, I agree.
But now you're asking men to not do something that they're not traditionally used to doing. That's what makes us tick.
Yeah, and look where it's got us. Look
I
what
know.
So listen, the women have changed from the standpoint of their expectations, but their natures are kind of still the same. So
yes.
you got a woman whose nature has been unleashed, and the power that they have is misused at almost every goddamn level. So I mean, and it's not just the internet, because these people with the worst ideas have millions of followers all over the place. So what I'm trying to say is that what I'm saying is, if you're a man who has something to lose, you should at least, if you're going to do this search, you should search for women who have something to lose.
So are you promoting jizzle?
So no, that's not really drizzle. I before drizzle. It just happens to sound that way. It just happens to sound. I think men need to be more discerning. I don't like the term soft guy era. That bothers me.
Hey, but they're speaking to you though. They're speaking to your point though. They're speaking to your point. The same thing you're saying right now. The same sentiment is what they're basing their movement on.
And part of it is, some of it is, of course, most of it is satire. But the truth of the matter is, men in this day and age need to be more hypergamous. I don't know what the name for it for men, but if you're marrying women who are needy and have the mindset of the modern woman, you're letting a vampire into your house.
Now, here's the thing about it.
Because if she check, you can only vet for so much. It's a risk reduction. If a woman, she don't have to make more than you, but she's got to have something to lose. Because and when you want to write a prenup, I bet you bottom dollar, a woman with assets and shit to lose, she's signing that son of a bitch just as fast.
She'll want to do it.
Now, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I was going to say this, I'm going to let you back in. I pay your show. But here's the deal. This is very possible. Right? This is. You worry. This does have weight.
You're breaking up. Say it again.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
You good now, Ruthless.
Okay. This is very I would say logical and plausible in this day and time. I'm not disagreeing, but there's a couple nuances we have to be aware of, because the problem that we're having with women is on a psychological level is they're having these degrees and bringing these resources, fighting for resources. They're demanding equality or up. So yeah, do I want to get a woman educated and has bringing more to the table because of the loss factor? Well, specifically, yes. But now, what type of mentality am I getting though, right? Because now she's bringing her own shit to the table, and she's with the feminist movement already that's going in women's mind. She's definitely going to leverage that and leverage everything else for any movement in this house that I want to do that's outside of her, mindset.
I got one for you, Rufus.
Yeah.
Do you want a broke woman who's a feminist, or a woman with money that's a feminist? Which
Damn,
one do
that's a
you
good
think
question.
is more dangerous?
That's a good fucking
Which
question.
one do you think is more dangerous? You know what I'm saying? You know, because they're all feminists.
I think the one,
Yeah, but there's levels to it, Arcane.
Of
I
course,
think the
but
one
I
with the
mean,
degree,
man,
I think the one with the degree is more dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
you think so?
Yeah,
Yes,
Well,
because
hell
she's
yeah.
more
well,
aware.
dangerous how? Listen, okay, let me level set this shit. Isn't it, to me, isn't it more of a challenge to get one of these so-called chicks who say all this bullshit but got her own, and then you bring her under your covering and she actually submits because you're the man? There's something to be said for that, right? I mean, there's something to be said for that. A woman who's high-powered, but she looks at you as her number one choice. And so the calculus between the two of you is a little different, but it's something you can live with, right? But I'm saying that men need to start thinking about that, because it's not the rich chicks that you marry that take you to the cleaners if you got equally yoked financially. It's the brokies. And when they leave, they want to take everything with them. And that's what men are afraid of. And because men are too stupid to sign a prenup because some asshole on the internet say they don't work. That's not true. They do work. They give the judge a track to run on. It just doesn't cover the kids. So all of this trying to say, man, is the drizzle is timely. The satire we could put to the side, but men understanding their worth and not succumbing to a woman just because she got a nice ass.
But,
There's something to be said about that.
But you got to look at it like this, though, right? You got to
What?
remember, back in your days, right? Back in the days, this was the best dynamic. The best dynamic, right, was the man being the breadwinner, right? She's coming in, right, under his authority, his power, and he providing these things so that he can have the leverage, so that she can be more equipped to be with him. Now, if you're saying she's coming in equal, right, all things equal, now we have a problem. And for example, Tom Brady and his wife, right? So because he wanted to continue to play football, right? He wanted to play football. She's like, no, you need to quit now because I'm just as valuable as you. Yeah, you got money, but I'm a millionaire too. So you need to quit now or else. Or else what? I'm gonna take the kids. I'm gonna take the kids. I'm gonna take the kids. Hold on, I'm gonna take the kids, right? And you're gonna visit them on the weekends only. So,
okay.
But
you know what, though, Arcane? Arcane, I'm gonna add a little bit of real world experience to this, right?
5 more seconds, Cassine. Give me 5 more seconds. He said, I want to play football. And she said, oh, you call my bluff, nigga? What? I got you. Divorce paper right under his door when he get home from practice. I landed.
Brother, but again, we're going to have to be quick because we got another show coming up here. When our sister Embrace the Grace, so I want to make sure we get off with enough time for her to do. So go ahead, Kasim. Go ahead. Hit it.
I will say this from my experience here in the corporate world. I know a lot of high-powered women, in very, very senior positions that make a lot of money. And more times than not, they tend to be a little bit more running the relationship, a little bit less submissive, a little bit less cooperative, because again, they're used to button heads with all these other bulls and rams. And it's very, very difficult for them to turn that off at the end of the day. And when I look at their husbands, I realize hey, you know what? She is definitely running the show.
Because he's a lesser man. He's a lesser man.
Yes. So, yes. But we say this, right? That the more leadership position that a woman is, particularly in the corporate world, challenging against men, she got to take on some of those masculine traits as men in order for her to be taken seriously. And it gets to a point where they're not able to turn that off, right, when they get home, and then it kind of seeps into the relationship.
Kasim,
wait
a minute. Let me just say this. I'll cut you off. They marry. The reason why they do that, and they can't turn it off, but the reason why they marry lesser men is because now their mating strategy has turned into what a man does. We generally marry women underneath us economically and socially, and we try to raise them up. right? Because that's what men do. Who's you enamored to? We don't care about her finances and this and that. And sometimes they're horrible, but as long as we're enamored with her, we bring them out of the mud. So the women at the higher level, executive level, of course, there's a smaller percentage of men that would ever marry them. So in order for them to get married, they got to look at men at a lower echelon, just like the older women now are trying to scuff up these little young rappers, right? Just like Keisha Cole just did it, right? She's not married to the guy, but she scoffed up a 24-year-old because she knows that he's no match for her from the standpoint of the things she wants. He can't guide her with nothing, right? So women do that because they want the advantage at all times. But so what I'm saying, forget. I'm gonna end it here. I'm not talking about hyenas. I'm talking about a woman, even if she's in corporate. Why? How do doctors get married? How do people who are women get married who want families but still understand the natural order of things? That's what you
happy wife, happy life.
Now to say that.
Yeah, I get that, but there are some instances where that dynamic does happen, right? But at one point, perhaps maybe the woman starts climbing the corporate ladder, or her career starts progressing much faster than her husband, right? So now she has surpassed her husband in status, surpassed her husband in income, surpassed her husband, in rank, right? And again, the more that she moves up, the more of a particular men that she's around, and the more competitive she has to be against these other men. Right. So that dynamic, it definitely does happen. I've seen it a lot, in corporate world, particularly when I was, in medicine and stuff like that. I saw a lot of the women, that were, they had to, they do their thing,
Then you divorce her and take her money and make her pay you alimony. You know what I'm saying? Shit. Let's go ahead and get some final thoughts in here. Go ahead, Ruthless, man. What's your final thoughts on the topic?
My final thought is this. Anytime, in most cases of sexless marriages, it's the woman, right? And she's leveraging it for mostly power and control. In most cases, right? That there's something a point she wants to get across. Because she knows she can't physically take you out. She knows you're most likely, most men are better than her financially. So how does she use her power? How to exert her power is through her vagina. And this is what she's going to use to let you know that this is, you don't do what I say, acquiesce to what I need. You will not be able to get this tonight or maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know, right? So my point is this. As long as we as men keep trying to acquiesce to these women, right, and keep trying to please them, which is an empty well, we will lose. Now land.
Okay. Hey man, Joe, we on final thoughts, man. You pop up, man. So, but
no, bro. Here's hold on. Here's the thing. Hold on, Shu. Here's the thing. My sister done called me and all kind of shit. Listen, I've been back here for a long time. Your stupid blind broke ass just didn't bother to pull me up. That's what it is.
Oh, I didn't know that, man. That's DM.
Yeah, of course you didn't know. You're blind and broke.
I know. I can't pull you up anyway, man.
Yes, you can. Well, who's got the command back there?
CBN, man.
CBN, that's what you got an African on it. That's the problem. Yeah, listen. First of all, Kasim, what are you doing in my house?
What do you mean in your house?
This is my house, Black Man Unfiltered. Yes.
I get invited to a whole bunch of. What do you mean? Why? I'm not welcome.
No, don't listen
to him. You need to ask permission. Yes, Arpain. Who was here first? Before all of y'all.
Well, he's here now, man. Go ahead, man. What you got,
he's here now, man. Yeah. Y'all niggas
you just got married. So
y'all niggas are goofy. Listen, this goofy shit I'm hearing.
I didn't know you just got married.
Yeah, I did. Thank you very much. This goofy shit I'm hearing, though, man, stop the madness. Look, it all depends, okay? As far as women having money or whatever. If you want a woman with money, if you're looking for a woman with money, you should be older. You should be older because the best time to get married is when you're younger, early 20s.
I agree with that.
Okay, that way you both broke, you ain't got shit, and you build what you get together, right? And that bond that you build together in the process of that is priceless.
I agree with that.
And it's nearly unbreakable. Okay, then why aren't y'all pushing that instead of, hey man, she got to have money too? Yeah, if you older, 35 and up, but you're 30 years old as a man, you still ain't really.
you know,
You know what I'm
most
saying?
people
You're still climbing.
yeah,
You're still
most people
climbing.
yeah, but we weren't
Yeah,
talking
most
about
dudes, they still climbing at 30 years old, man. So I mean, my thing is this: it depends, you know. And people don't hate to hear that phrase. Hear those words. It depends. No, it shouldn't depend. It does though. It does.
We agree with that. Okay.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't hear that coming out your mouth, Arpain.
Yo, but we were talking about. You
All I
gotta
hear is
understand
this ridiculous right-wing Republican nonsense from you.
that's-
Okay? That's what I hear. He's a Republican, Christine. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
He is, unfortunately. See,
I'm
my
not
dad always said
I'm
it's
an
not much
I'm an
worse than a black
independent.
Republican.
I'm
Not
an
much
Oh
worse than
independent.
that.
shit.
I'm an independent, man. You know, and it'll be my whole cold dead fingers before I vote for another Democrat. Right now, I'll tell you that right now.
See?
But okay, go ahead.
No, I just that's what I wanted to put out. Like, you gotta sharpen your tools up, man, and you have to put more focus on this stuff. I mean, people have to know that because it sounds blanketed, and that's why people are getting confused because they're making decisions based on advice that is geared towards the masses, and it's not. It depends on what you want. You do these things. You go and train to be a doctor if you want to be a doctor. You go and train to be a soldier if you want to be a soldier. There's different criteria and different kinds of training and things you need to look for depending on what you want to do. Kasim is in fashion. You can't do that if you're learning to be a chef. You know what I'm saying? He'd never be in fashion if he wanted to be a chef. No, that ain't what it is. So I just think y'all need to tighten up your shot group with the message. Anyway,
Well,
I gotta go because
yeah.
I got a meeting to go to. Thank you, Kasim. Arpain, you didn't pull me up, so that's all right. I got some choice words for you. Okay, Kasim, welcome. Next time that's permission, but it's too late because you're already here. All right, fellas, y'all take it easy.
Later, man. Later. All right. Go ahead, Kasim, man. You got. Brother.
Yeah, I would say this, man. Listen, men and women are better together, right? The only way that we can survive is if we cooperate with one another and understand one another, right? I think the better chance you have in understanding, your woman, the better outcomes that you're going to get. You also have to understand that there are certain things that are beyond her control, that her libido is eventually it's going to wane down. And at that particular point, the quantity of sex is not going to be as important as the quality of it. And as you're going through the relationship, there are going to be other virtues. There are going to be other particular things that are going to be way, way more powerful, than the sex. Sex is very, very important, and you guys can keep that alive. They say, you can have sex, a healthy relationship. Can you have sex like once a week, right?
Yes.
And I'm a totally big believer in that. But there's also other qualities of the individual that's going to be more important. So just talk to each other, flirt with each other, be arouse one another and make time for yourselves. It's okay to have a certain plan to wanting to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So just focus on keeping the harmony in the relationship, the best as you can. And men, lead. That's my final thought.
All right, man. Thanks for coming up, man. I appreciate it, man. That's good, man. It's good conversation. And so listen, my final thoughts here is that I think the sexual intimacy, if it's lacking, as long as you have that general intimacy that continues between a man and a woman as your spouse, I think there's a path forward. I think, even though we talked about a lot of subjects, being in a sexless marriage doesn't have to be hopeless unless there's certain things that have happened that you can't come back from. That's what I'll say. And for most part, I think from a woman has a part to play, of course. And yes, she has the vagina. Yes, she can use it as a weapon or not. But I'm not talking about that. I'm saying if there's legitimate reasons where you have a disconnect, I think if you're in tune with your woman as a man, you could bring her back from the abyss. And I don't think you should look at that as a chore. I mean, I've had, for all the things you have to do in a marriage, that should be one of the easiest things to do, especially if you want to get laid on a continuous basis. So with having said that, let me just say, listen, next week I won't have a show and Friday I won't be around either because me and the wife I'm gonna go punch some tickets. We're gonna be out of pocket, and I'm not gonna be on YouTube at all. So this is gonna be one of those kind of moments where we're gonna rekindle some of the buttons that where I know where all the buttons are, and I'm gonna press them all. So we're gonna have a good time for a little while. So I'll be going on Friday, and I won't be having a show on Monday next week. And I'll tell BMU that probably tomorrow again if he's probably in the back seething about what we're talking about because he just wants to slam bam, thank you, ma'am, and shit. Here's the Bible. Read it. And just do what you got to do. So with that, man, thanks to the chat. Easy Money, thanks for coming up. Ruthless, thanks for coming up. Everybody else going back and forth in this. I appreciate all that. So thanks for joining in. And so CBN, you can take us out of here, man. Good night, everybody. And stay tuned for Grace to Grace later on at 9:30.
All right, guys, be good.
Right.